Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me today for our webinar, which is Customer Service Effects on Social Media. So my name is Kristy Bailey. I own and run 180 Marketing, which is an agency that focuses on marketing strategy for small businesses, essentially. So a lot of what we go through today is going to be sort of real life experiences and things that I implement for businesses on a day-to-day basis. The webinar today is designed to be interactive. So if you want to ask questions at any time, please feel free to do that. Just use the Q&A functionality on Zoom and go ahead and pop your question in there. I will try and answer it as I can get to it. But if not, we'll also have some time for questions at the end of the session today. So in terms of what the session itself is, what we're going to look at is, first of all, the suggestion that customer service is a single interaction, whereas the customer experience incorporates that entire customer journey. So we're going to look at the customer journey itself and understanding that whole experience process. We'll also look at the dimensions of customer service. We'll have a look at first impressions, handling complaints effectively, and upselling, all as strategies to really improve that customer experience. We'll then talk a little bit about social media and that critical link between each of these customer interactions and social media. So throughout the webinar, you'll hopefully discover how important customer interactions are for your online presence, and then what you can do to generate positive word of mouth from each and every customer that will then in turn translate to that word of mouth and that online conversation. So customer experience management. So I look at it on the basis that customer service is a single touch point with a brand at a moment that that customer is in front of you or they're purchasing from you. Whereas customer experience impacts feelings and emotion and encompasses that entire customer journey. Customer experience is defined by the interactions and the experiences that your customer has with you throughout that entire journey. From the first point of contact, perhaps in that research phase, through to them hopefully becoming a happy and eventually or ultimately a loyal customer. So your job's to understand that whole customer experience process and then learn the critical link between each customer interaction. And for the purposes of today's session, specifically looking at how social media fits into the customer experience. So rather than customer service sitting alone, we want to consider the job at hand to be customer experience management. Now, customer experience, in my view, has to be a top priority to businesses. And that reason is really simple. Companies that focus on customer experience reduce churn, so turnover of customers, and increase their revenues. And that obviously leads to higher profits for you, which is generally the ultimate goal. So successful customer experience management, I believe, requires a 360-degree view of your customers with integrated and up-to-date data on them. So we need to understand our customers. We need to create that customer journey map. We need to develop an emotional connection to your brand, or have your customers develop an emotional connection to your brand. And then we have to be able to capture customer feedback so that we can track their satisfaction, but also track comments that they might make and feedback that they'll have on your brand. Implementing a social media strategy in your customer service model will give you that chance to communicate with customers and communicate with them at a level that makes sure that they feel part of your story as well, and really encourages them to recommend your brand to others. And that's ultimately where you want to be. So a bit of a statistic for you: 1 in 3 customers will leave a brand they love after just one bad experience. So customers that rate companies with a high customer experience, so you 10 out of 10, are said to spend about 140% more and remain loyal for up to 6 years. So that really highlights the importance of ensuring that customer service is at the forefront of your business's goals. Okay, so having a look at the actual customer journey. Now, this really can vary business to business, depending on the nature of your business, but this will give you an idea of how the journey might look. So this is what we call a customer journey map. And to map the journey out for your business, what you need to do is think about and visualize each and every touch point that you're going to have with your future and your current clients. So really think about each step of interaction, starting with that initial step of when the customer discovers your product or service, and how they start researching and get to your product or service. Now, that exercise helps you to step into their shoes and to see your business from their perspective. So essentially, you map out this customer journey like it's laid out here on the screen before you design the experience. So before you determine what's going to happen and what that experience is going to be like at each and every touch point. So on this diagram, you see the online interactions at the top, so above that middle bar, the dots at the top, and then the more traditional or offline interactions are at the bottom. So you can see that social media or social network sits there at the end in that advocacy phase. But I would also go back to that awareness phase and look at some of those online aspects there. So online advertising, even word of mouth, these all happen via social media. So it actually really, social media does pop up more than just that once. Now, with the journey itself, it typically starts with your awareness and consideration. So the orange and the purple steps that you see there. Now, they're generally the first stages of a customer journey, and they're absolutely crucial to adding people to your sales funnel. If you get them at this stage, obviously they're more likely to go through to that purchase phase. Customers are reading reviews and testimonials. They're comparing their experience with you to their experiences with other companies. If you have a quick response time to any inquiries at this stage, it really leaves a lasting impression. So if you think about a customer who's just found your product, perhaps through online advertising that you've done, or even just a straight Google search, it looks like your product will meet their needs and solve a problem that they might have, but they've got a question. And it could be just a question about one of the features of your product or service. So they're going to need a really quick response to stay in your funnel. The next stage of the customer journey is then conversion, or that purchase stage. So that's what you see there in red. And that part of the journey is absolutely crucial because it deepens that customer relationship with your business. They're a lot more engaged with you at this point. It's also where leads or potential customers then decide if your products are the best fit for them. And not so much the best fit for them, but the best fit for their needs. So what is it that they're trying to satisfy at that point in time by purchasing a product or utilizing your service? If it does perfectly fit their needs, then they'll purchase from you. And the quicker a person can get to that point with as fewer barriers as possible, the better. And when we talk about barriers, that could be in the awareness and consideration phase, that you're not taking, that you're taking too long to get back to them about queries that they might have about your product or service. So keep that in mind. Then we've got retention. So it's not enough to spend all of your marketing energy acquiring these new customers and then just leaving them to fend for themselves once they've purchased something or once they've checked out, essentially. You really have to engage with them to keep them coming back. So if your customers do stop hearing from you, if you stop helping them, and if you stop helping them, and also if they stop getting value from your product throughout this entire life cycle, then you risk making that life cycle much shorter, and potentially losing them to your competitors if they've still got a need for your product or service. So high retention will drive further customer acquisition, and it does so more organically. So, and that's with the help of referral programs and other incentives to get people to be advocates of your product or service. Customers will then, at that retention phase, consider sharing about you, but you need to be able to engage with them and remind them of the value that you offer, and remind them how happy they are with your product or service. And those increased benefits that they can get by then sharing their experience. And that's where I say it's good to have some kind of referral program or incentive to get people to share about their experience with you. Advocacy then comes at the end, and that comes with a satisfied customer. So another really interesting stat here is that 83% of satisfied customers say they're willing to share or refer to their network of friends or family, potentially colleagues, if they're satisfied. So we want each and every customer to be an advocate and to be sharing their positive experience. And there's a really large component that sits there in social media. Keep in mind that customer expectations are massively on the rise, and it will continue to grow. And that really forces companies to reinvent themselves to be able to survive. The reason being is that there's just so much availability of multiple products and services under different brands, different offers that could be quite similar to yours. So plus that presence of online platforms, in particular social media, has really given the control over to the customer in decision making. And people really do rely on what they know and hear from other people in order to make purchase decisions themselves. Think about that referral versus advertising. We're much more likely to believe a crowd or, you know, other consumers than we are advertising, particularly about a product or service. Okay, so a key way to really improve the customer journey is to understand your customers. So you have to remember that not all customers are the same, and therefore they'll not need or expect the same things when they're purchasing products or services. Everyone will have different needs and expectations because they do fall into different categories. They may differ because of their age. It could be their social background, their economic background, cultural background. They could have special interests. There could be differing physical or mental abilities as well. So you really have to successfully meet the needs and expectations. And to do that, the first step is to really know your audience. You have to have a very clear picture of who exactly your audience is. So that's going beyond basic demographic information like their age, their gender, and their location. You have to have a really clear picture of your target market. That could come down to psychographics. It could come down to behaviors. There's a range of different elements that you have to consider here. And that goes back to having a solid marketing strategy. The very first component of any marketing strategy is to have a very clear idea of who your target market is and to be able to describe them in detail. You have to make sure you're reaching the right buyers. And that sort of goes back to, obviously, you have to have a clear idea of who your ideal buyers are and who that target market is. But you then also need to be open to the suggestion that they may not be who you think. So having a look at analysing your past statistics, your data, everything that you capture on your customers, and then doing research based on what other potential new target audiences you may like to consider. Also having a look at the traits that correlate with repeat purchases. So what segments tend to become more longer term and more loyal customers, essentially. So do your research internally and absolutely do research externally as well, because there could be markets you're not attracting at the moment that could be potential markets for you. Also have a look at new ways to meet their needs. So once you've identified who your most valuable customers are and what it is that they're looking for, it should be your goal to continually find new ways to better meet their needs. So you should never, ever expect your audience to change their expectations to fit your product or service. You should be adapting your product or service to meet their needs. Also, you need to develop a customer-centric culture. So encourage your employees to keep your customers at the center of every single decision they make. We will go more into customer service, obviously, because that's a core component of what we're going through today. But yeah, just as a basis, set very clear standards for your team. The team that interacts with your customers most often, even from a support, so a sales and then a support after a product has been purchased, have a major impact on whether or not your customer is going to be meeting those customer expectations. So hiring and training an excellent team should be absolutely crucial to meeting your customers' needs. Also collect feedback regularly. You have to be able to collect that feedback. Social media is absolutely brilliant for that, and it makes it very, very easy for us to really create or to collect that feedback. There are other ways that you can collect feedback as well. Unfortunately, response rates on surveys and that kind of thing are generally very low. So that can lead to not getting feedback, and that's where social media comes into it, because people are a lot more comfortable in the space of talking via social media and social channels and online channels than they are in doing something that they think might help a company in terms of filling out a feedback form or some kind of survey. The other thing I would really suggest in order to determine whether you can potentially target a new market or whether you are meeting the needs of and expectations of your customers now is to look at your competitors, know what they're doing, what value they are promoting to their audience, and particularly if they're a direct competitor as well. There could be a lot of information in researching your competitors. All right, so I said we'd talk more about customer service because it's really at the core of everything that we're going through today. And with customer service, there's 3 dimensions and they really all interlink. So first of all, you've got human dimensions, and that relates to body language, its attitudes, it's how motivated your staff are, or more frighteningly, how motivated they may not be. Then you've got business dimensions. Business is your processes, your procedures. It is also your product offering and knowing whether that product is up to scratch or making sure it is up to scratch. Your business elements also include your staff knowledge, specific functions, even the delivery of your product. Now, the third element is the hidden dimensions. Now, hidden dimensions are the underlying things in a business. So what's going on behind the scenes that could be impacting customers or customer service. So it could be your policies. It could be, you know, that staff aren't on board with the particular policies that you have. It could be technical issues. It could be pressure on staff due to limited staff resources, perhaps, or being overworked, not having high enough staffing levels. It could be staff bringing their home problems to work, which is obviously a major concern. And those kind of things are beyond your control, but you need to definitely identify if and where they could be causing a breakdown in these dimensions of customer service. Levels of empowerment of staff and the quality of their working relationships are also key elements to those hidden elements of customer service. Now, the analogy that I like to look at when I think about these hidden dimensions is thinking about how calm a duck looks on a lake or a pond swimming along. They look graceful and very much at ease, but under the water, their legs are going like crazy. So that's essentially what we want to achieve with these hidden dimensions. There are always hidden dimensions in businesses, but we don't want it to affect our customers, I should say. Keep in mind that customers also have hidden dimensions, and that really impacts how they interact with you and how they receive your product or service. Not only interacting with you, but interacting with your staff as well. So think about what might have happened in their day that's made them difficult to please. These 3 dimensions of customer service are really good to know for both frontline staff, those people within your business that are dealing with your customers face-to-face. And research does suggest that if you align these 3 dimensions, that will equate to excellent customer service. So if you're aware of them all, if you understand them all, and if you make sure that you're achieving top results in all elements, that will equate to excellent customer service. So it's really important that your staff do have customer service training and do understand these elements as well. All right, good customer service is absolutely critical in all businesses. So it can elevate you well above your competition. It can be the difference between 2 identical products or services, and the difference lies all in the customer service. You need to make sure that you're always looking at that mantra, that under promise and over deliver. It will hugely improve your customer retention rate. The last thing, and when we talk about meeting needs are one thing, expectations are different. So needs we can meet with a product or a service. Expectations are a lot harder to meet because you don't always know what someone's expecting versus what what you're going to deliver, but you don't know what has led them to a point of having a certain expectation. So keep that in mind. Under promising and over deliver generally means happy customers. Also remember, if customers are frustrated with the service that they receive from you, just service, even if the product is absolutely amazing, they are a lot more likely to rate your business poorly. A top indicator here is that your reviews online. So I would highly recommend that you look at your reviews. So there's obviously social media. People can review you on Facebook. There are Google reviews. So most businesses will have a Google review page or have a Google page. Whether or not you've claimed that business to be your own, it doesn't matter. People can still review on those platforms. Then there's a whole heap of other platforms that people can review on, and it really depends on the industry that you're in. But you know, if it's the hospitality industry, it could be on something as simple as Uber Eats, or it could be Yelp, Zomato, there's TripAdvisor, there's Booking.com, there's tons of different ways that people can review you. So make sure that you are looking at all of those reviews. And make sure that you are aware of what's being said on them. But not only that, make sure that you are actively responding to both positive and negative reviews. So wherever you can, issue some kind of management response. I would highly recommend that you do that, just so that people know that you're active, you're listening, you care. There's nothing worse than wanting to communicate with a business and them not responding to you. So think about, you know, in this sense, if you're at a party and someone was there talking to you and you were just standing there not talking back to them, it obviously comes across as you're not there, you're vacant, you're rude. And it's the same with social media. When people are making an effort to engage with you, you absolutely have to engage back with them. Those reviews have a lot of information in them as well, and it could be things that you're not aware of, different things about your staff. It could show breakdown in procedures, or something that can be identified through simple reviews. It can really be rectified then. All right, so in terms of how do we improve customer service to make sure that you have a good retention rate of customers, and then ultimately have those brand advocates. And those brand advocates are the ones that are going to get online and get onto social media and start recommending your product or service, and therefore generate more visitors, more customers through your door. So there are a few key things that we'll go over. The first thing is first impressions. So the customer journey absolutely starts with first impressions. It's so important that we get this right. Keep in mind, each and every person that interacts with a business does so because they want to feel good. Everyone wants to satisfy or solve that need or want and feel good in doing it. First impressions are made in the first 3 to 7 seconds of an initial meeting. And one key thing that you need to keep in mind is that your first impressions aren't always generated through a physical meeting or a purchase. Or face-to-face interaction. It could be purely somebody Googling and coming across your website, and that 3 to 7 seconds on your homepage is all you've got to get them to stay on and perhaps click through to another page. So even if you've got an amazing physical location, your customer service is fantastic, think about your website and whether or not that is doing you justice. Some businesses, particularly if they're not an online focused business, forget about the website and don't think that it's that important, but the majority of research with customers starts online. So other things that form a first impression, well, your environment and your venue presentation, or your presentation of your location, that can really include a range of things, including the smell of it, the temperature, what sort of music you're playing, the general atmosphere. A key thing here is that you have to keep consistent with the brand that you're trying to create. That goes back to that first step of understanding who your target market is. Think about if your target market was an older demographic, 60 plus, for example, and in your office or your location where these people come to interact with you, you had extremely loud music that was, you know, straight from the top 10 hits or something like that. It's not going to make them feel comfortable. So you truly have to understand your target market. And then all of these things, your environment and the presentation of your environment is just designed to align with that target market. Your staff or your own personal image is really important here as well, and matching that with who your target market is. Think about a range of different things here, from what sort of uniforms you have to clothing you wear, making sure that your target market is comfortable with what they see when they visit you, no matter what your personal beliefs are. We're sort of focusing here on what your target audience is, what's going to appeal to your target audience. And that sort of extends to your local language. So if you're using slang, do they understand that, depending on where they're from? If you have an international market, you can't be using things like slang because it may not make sense to them. Think about other ways that you speak. Even the greeting is really important as well. So that local language is a key factor. Body language is really important. Body language is absolutely crucial. You can say so much, or it says so much about an attitude based on body language, how attentive you are, if you're slumped over, if you're facing away, all of those things that are really, really important. So make sure that you've got your environment set up and your staff trained to understand that that body language is a crucial element. Even if you're smiling or not smiling, smiling is hugely important because it's that warmth and that sense of sort of acknowledgement. And then there's actual acknowledgement. So I mentioned the 15 and 10 rule on the slide that you can see now. Now that's a Disney concept. And the concept is that if you're within 15 feet, or if a customer is within 15 feet of you, which is about 4.5 meters, they have to acknowledge the customer with a smile. Now, if that customer is within 10 feet, so about 3.5 meters, they have to smile and verbally acknowledge them with a hi, how can I help you, or whatever that greeting is. So acknowledgement makes someone feel good, and that will create a lasting first impression. Other acknowledgements could be complimenting them, talking about the weather, talking about their children if they've got children, that kind of thing. So that's the whole focus, is making them feel comfortable. Now, I do come across this quite a lot, where you walk into, whether it seems to happen a bit in food and beverage, particularly in busy cafes, where you've got someone that's sort of behind a coffee machine. So you can't even, sometimes they can't even see you. So that's not the best setup. If that's your only staff member and they can't even see someone, you can hear someone working away, but they're shorter than the coffee machine. So having that greeting and that acknowledgement is absolutely crucial. And there's nothing worse than walking in somewhere, you know they're there, they know you're there because of peripheral vision and sensing people walk in the door and that kind of thing, but you're not being acknowledged. So that's the big no-no. And then attitude and empathy. So general attitude is obviously crucial, and that will extend to your language, your body language, acknowledgement, all of that stuff. Think about hidden factors here. If you're aware of someone within your organization that perhaps has a bad attitude on a particular day because of hidden factors, then that needs to be addressed. But empathy, so understanding what people are going through, particularly, you think about a classic example is the mum and kids, where you can see the mum come in, she's got kids looking a bit frazzled, and just whether you've got kids or not, having that empathy for them and what they're going through is really, really important, and will make them feel a lot more comfortable. But you can display empathy in a range of different scenarios. So it's having the training and the confidence to be able to liaise with people, to have that connection with people that are in front of you and who are potentially your loyal and hopefully brand advocates in the future. Okay, so the next element that can really impact customer service is complaint handling. So pretty much everyone will have to deal with customer complaints at some point in their career. There's always complaints, rightly or wrongly. It could be something as simple as getting an order slightly wrong, or there could be a major business error or a breakdown. So how you handle that complaint makes a huge difference to what that customer or how that customer reviews you or sees you, and then also whether or not that customer turns out to be a loyal customer and an advocate really comes to a sort of a crunch point here in this complaint handling process. So I think the LEARN format is a great format to follow. And LEARN is obviously an acronym for listen to the customer's concern. So don't interrupt them. Let them explain to you what their concern is. Even if you think you know what it might be, make sure that you actually listen to their complaint. Empathize. Be sympathetic, tell them that you understand how they feel. And again, it goes back to that saying the customer is always right. Even if you don't feel that what they're saying in that first phase, as you're listening to them, is 100% right, it's really important to say that you understand and that you are sympathetic. The next element is to apologize. So if it's appropriate, then there absolutely needs to be an apology. Now, I think on the basis of good customer service, you should apologize even if you don't feel you've done something wrong. And it could be, you know, as simple as, I'm sorry you feel that way, or I'm sorry that this has happened, or I'm sorry that, you know, whatever the apology might be. You will know what you're apologizing for because you've listened. The next element is the reaction. So evaluate different solutions and think about how you're going to react. Think about what sort of solutions might suit the customer as well. Now, the more you know about them through listening to them, the more you'll be able to gauge at what sort of reaction here is going to be appropriate. If someone said, we'll go back to the coffee shop example, but if someone didn't get a coffee because an order got missed, they're at the counter saying, I'm running really late, I've got to go, I didn't get my coffee. It's probably not suitable to say, wait, we'll make you coffee now, because they have to go. They've been clear about that. So maybe a better reaction is to give them a voucher to come back for another coffee and give them their money back, or something along those lines. So just really evaluating different solutions for that particular customer, and not having a cookie cutter sort of approach where you go, all right, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. The next thing is to notify or follow up. So after you've offered and provided some kind of solution, I would highly recommend to personally check with that guest and make sure that they are in fact satisfied. And this can happen if, you know, you've sent them away, they're still in your premises and they do have a solution, whether it's an alternative. You can gauge by their reaction, by their body language, if they're happy with that. But it's always good to check, does that suit you? Are you happy with that? And then if they've gone away with their product also after their service, I would definitely find a way to touch base with them afterwards. So whether that's through a phone call or an email, some kind of personal sort of connection. Now, there are reasons that we don't handle complaints well. Number one reason is that we're too busy. Sometimes because we're too busy, the complaints are caused. But then under that sort of circumstance, or just by being busy, we try to rush the person through the process of, come on, tell me what's happened and I'll fix it. People don't want to feel rushed. So that goes back to that listen phase. Make sure that you do take the time to actually listen. Tied in with that is being defensive and trying to come up with a solution too quickly. They can be standalone issues, but a lot of the time they're tied together. So the first one, being defensive, it tends to happen particularly with small businesses, because we're passionate about our businesses and we take complaints as a sort of a form of offense sometimes, or can do. So that defensiveness can be an issue. So really make sure that you're not defensive if you're handling and dealing with a complaint. Trying to give that solution too quickly can cause a lot of issues as well, because people don't feel heard. Sometimes they want you to stop, take the time and go through, let them speak about their problem, be heard, and then offer a solution. So don't try and sort it out too quickly, if that makes sense. Another reason that we don't handle complaints too well can be a staffing issue, where the staff are intimidated because they haven't had enough training on how to handle a customer complaint. So you should have a customer complaints policy in your business and a process that's followed in the event of a complaint, so that your customers are really clear, if this happens, this is what I need to do. That ties into empowerment, where staff often don't know at what level they can offer a solution versus when they need to escalate that problem to the next level. So think about that. Think about, do your staff know that if there's a complaint, they can offer a solution up to X amount of dollar value, or these are a range of solutions that we can offer? Or is it the policy that they need to escalate it to a supervisor? At what point can the supervisor handle it versus then escalating it to a manager, owner, that kind of thing. So just be clear. Now, through procedures, having strict procedures, you will have addressed two of those points. So you will have addressed the training issue, but also the empowerment issue, because your policies and procedures should be really clear in there. Now, another reason that we don't handle complaints well is because of a procedure breakdown. So maybe you do have a procedure, but at some point, maybe the solution wasn't provided, or the person that was meant to get back to the customer complaining didn't. So just really check those procedures and make sure that they're thorough and that there's no gaps in them is the major thing in terms of handling complaints. Now, another way to really improve customer service, but also to improve your revenues, is suggestive selling. So suggestive selling is a sales technique where yourself or an employee asks the customer if they'd like to include an additional purchase, or perhaps recommending a product that might suit the client that has a higher value or a different value. And so suggestive selling obviously is generally used to increase the purchase amount of the client and then your revenues and hopefully your profits. But it is also great for customer service, because the more we know about a customer, the more we can suggestive sell to them. And that means that we're sort of customizing things to them, which means we understand them and know them on some level. So suggestive selling is great. It has multiple benefits. So definitely incorporate that as part of your customer service policy, but also a great way to increase revenues. Now, how do you do it? First of all, you've got to incorporate a feature and a benefit. So think about a feature. A feature is something about your product or service, and then the benefit is what it means to the customer. And then think about what kind of conversation you can have that links the two. So think about what's in it for the customer. Now, I think that a greeting is a really key way to find out what the customer actually really wants. So as you're greeting them, as you're assessing who they are, who they've come in with, what sort of, how they're feeling, talking to them, how was your day, what have you been up to today, or whatever is appropriate for your business, you can start to think about what feature that you can give them based on what you know about them. So what we try here, and this is a major thing for customer service, is only asking open-ended questions. So an open-ended question is designed to encourage that full, meaningful answer. And you use your own knowledge and or feelings or thoughts and engage them to really avoid that dreaded word of no. Open-ended question is obviously the opposite of a closed-ended question. A closed-ended question is meant to encourage a single word response, which is absolutely not what we want. So tell me what you have in mind. What's the occasion? That could lead to many upselling opportunities. What kind of things do you enjoy, whatever's relevant to your business? What are you most looking forward to about your product or experience? You need to know your products and your menus. And when I say menus, I mean your range of products. So not just one particular product. Know the full range that you offer, so that you can then think of ways to upsell people. Don't just ask, even like, again, think about the hospitality example. Don't ask, do you want some dessert? Because that gives people the opportunity to say yes or no. What you could say is put down the dessert menu and go, so what sort of desserts do you like? We've got this, this, and this. Sharing your own experiences is really important here. So staff have to have that confidence to really share their own experience. And through suggestive selling, you really do improve that customer service. Because people are building a connection with your business. That in turn leads to a more positive experience, and that is much more highly likely to translate into a higher retention of your customers and therefore stronger advocacy. And all of that goes online. So when we talk about that link between customer service and social media, it happens here. And this is a really strong point for it. So keep that in mind. You can also set goals or incentives for your staff with this as well. So they might have certain upselling, and then you kind of solidifying a customer service benchmark here as well, because you know that your staff are really engaging with people. The other thing that's really important here is in terms of employment and your staff and how confident they are, how well trained they are. Don't think about employing people that are less qualified or less well trained to save money, I would highly recommend that you do pay that extra for staff that that can really focus on customer service, because they are more confident, or spend the time on training staff so that they can be really capable in areas of suggestive selling, but all general customer service. Okay, so how does this customer journey fit in with and relate to the social media space? Well, firstly, just having a look at what social media is. Essentially, it's any website or application that enables users to create and to share content, or to participate in any kind of social networking. So it could be Facebook, it could be Twitter, Instagram, and there's a range of other social sharing sites. So you have to keep in mind that social media is a lot more than just a messaging and an acquisition channel in terms of how you interact with your customers. It also really greatly and directly impacts your SEO, so your search engine optimization, or how well you rank on search engines like Google. So I'll expand a little bit more on that in a second. But before I do, the reason it's so important, well, 88% of people are influenced by reviews and online comments. So that is a huge statistic, a massive number. And social pressure can really tarnish your branding as quickly as you grow it. You have to keep in mind that people not only have social media at their fingertips, but their fingertips are always on the move. So if you're waiting in line, you're disgruntled about a service, people get on there quickly, let their friends know whether or not they've enjoyed their product or service. They could review on a range of review sites. They could be blogging about it, and they could be joining community groups and pages where there is discussion about certain products, services, or even brands. So keep that in mind. Now, social media has played this huge role in a power shift to customers. So think about how immensely connected the world has become since the introduction of social media. If you've had a bad experience, you'll post a review. You want to praise the business on the latest product they've launched, you might post a video review of you using that product. And that could be on YouTube, it could be Instagram. So the risks of social media can and negative social media are huge. It can really greatly affect your reputation negatively, but it can also have a hugely positive effect on your reputation. So that's the flip side. And that's where we sort of want to focus our efforts. And that's why you really want to encourage social media, so that you can get more reviews, more, you don't just want the extreme people going online. We want everyone to go online, essentially. Now, like I said, social media can positively impact your customer service. Your job is to have a look at how and where these social interactions fit into your customer journey, and really make sure that you're maximizing your efforts here to be part of any conversations that are going on. Listen to the feedback from your customers, and some tips for doing that are, first of all, to really reap the benefits of this two-way brand engagement. Customers love it when businesses share information, tips, ideas, sometimes even a bit of banter across social media. So a lot of customers like to send messages out to their favorite brands over social channels in particular. And they're pretty excited when brands respond back. So that two-way engagement on social media is a really great way to build your brand loyalty, but also help give your company its own voice and a bit of personality. I would think of social media as an extension of your contact info. So consumers today expect that quick response to comments or concerns. They want it within minutes, hours, not days. Social media lets people really effortlessly reach out to you. They don't get stuck on hold. They don't, have to sit there waiting for an email. They want to be able to go online and have that chat. They don't want to go to that hassle of finding your phone number, picking up the phone, making the call. So keep that in mind as well. Just in that, really nip complaints in the bud easily and quickly. So avoiding social media certainly won't stop your customers from speaking up if they've got a complaint. If you've got a presence on social channels, at least you'll know about those issues and can address them really quickly to get ahead of the situation. So another studies show that 70% of brands on social outlets respond to customers' complaints within the first 24 hours. So think about you and your business, and if you are in that 70%. If you're not there to do it, your competitors will be happy to pick up the slack in terms of satisfying your customers if you can't. But there will also be other people that will join in the conversation. I think that's where the risks do come. If there's a few people that have had a negative experience, then you'll see it very quickly escalate. I would always recommend that you've got your number or your email address listed so you can provide them with a really quick way to access you on a service that they already use perhaps, or if you want to have an offline conversation, you don't want it to be online, but you absolutely have to be there to really address those complaints quickly. Now, another thing in terms of social media is that you can spot trends on or before they even occur. So if you keep your ear to the ground and pay really close attention to what your customers are saying, you can spot these trends. You could also look at your competitors' customers and what kind of things they're saying and spot potential trends as well. Going back to what we said earlier, we don't expect customers to change their needs and wants to suit our product. We have always got to be looking at our product or service and how we can adapt that to meet the needs of our customers. To be able to meet the needs of customers, you've got to know what their needs are, and you can do that through listening online. Lots of analytical information can be found online as well. Monitor hashtags, like I said, follow your competitors, and just really get a head start on providing customers what they want. Now, the huge benefit is that social media gives you this additional access to your customers. So I don't think social media channels should be considered an advertising opportunity. It's not the right medium for a major sales campaign or, pushing your message too much. But there's nothing to stop you from sharing the odd offer or deal, just as long as it doesn't represent the majority of your posts. So I would think about an 80-20 rule here. 80% of the time you want to be creating that interesting content. Like we were saying earlier, it could be information, tips, ideas, bit of banter, things that will engage people. And then 20% of the time, a bit of advertising is okay. Now, think about increasing sales in the long term and social media activities. You have to be prepared to use social media for customer service as well as social interaction and a bit of sales. So keep that in mind. People want you to be there. If they've got a question, they might want to quickly send a message. If they want to book something, if they want to buy something, they may come to you through this channel, and that's just a sign of changing time. So you absolutely have to be there. It's not something you could go on and check every week, for example. All right, so I touched on this earlier, but social media can really positively impact your SEO, so your search engine optimization. So not only do those social interactions affect what your customer sees and what you see, it also affects the behind the scenes and how well you'll come up in those searches. Now, so much sharing takes place on these major social media platforms. So those social signals are really important for your SEO. A social signal refers to your collective shares, your likes, your overall social media visibility as perceived by search engines like Google, for example. So those activities contribute to your organic search ranking and are seen as another form, of citation or authority, similar to backlinks. So you should have a strategy that is designed to increase your social media engagement, and that'll raise your website search engine ranking. So if you're looking to raise your search rankings and improve that, your social media strategy is a really good way to do that. So think about that, but it has to be in addition to all your normal SEO tactics. So search engine optimization in its own right is a task, but don't forget that social media really helps with that as well. Now, we're after true engagement here. So not just likes, it has to be shares, it has to be comments, it has to be that true engagement. So there's no tricking search engines, and there's no tricking customers either. So if they're there, they're trying to engage with you, you absolutely have to have that genuine engagement back. So there's no cheat around this. There's no quick way to do it. You have to be there. Think about it as another really strong arm of your customer service strategy. Now, in terms of how to increase those social signals, well, first and foremost, your content is key. So you have to have valuable content. It has to be entertaining, informative, and that will really encourage a more positive interaction. So blatant spammy advertising is not going to get people to start to interact with you. So some tried and true strategies for really increasing your social signals are to post regularly to keep your brand at the top of social media news feeds. But I really stress this, go for quality, not quantity, because you're after engagement. So you can't be vacant and not post for months on end, but you don't want to post every single day if it's content that's not interesting and nobody's going to engage with it. Now, a key thing to keep in mind with social media, and in particular Facebook, for example, there's algorithms that sit behind who your post is going to be seen by. So if you have 1,000 people that follow your page, when you post, not all 1,000 people will see that post. It could only be a small number, but if you get a lot of engagement on that, the next time you post, Facebook is going to go, all right, well, that last post did pretty well, so let's show it to more people, because Facebook, like any other platform, doesn't want to show irrelevant, uninteresting content to people. Otherwise, we'll get sick of using it. If all we saw on Facebook were things that didn't interest us, that weren't engaging whatsoever, we'd stop using it. So keep that in mind. Quality, not quantity, because we need that engagement. So you need the engagement for your social signals from an SEO perspective, so how well your website ranks, but you also need it for how well each post is going to do, your future posts. Images are great. So images hugely increase interaction rates for all social media types. So just words alone aren't really enough. We want that really good image that meets your target audience's what they like to see and hear as well, is engaging, captivating. Yeah, that's going to get a little bit more interaction than just text by itself. You also want to listen, hear what people are saying about your brand, respond to critique, to complaints in a constructive and a positive way. Again, going back to that customer service or that complaint handling, don't get defensive here. Make sure that it's kept professional, and also talk in a way that meets your target audience's persona. So develop that brand voice. Monitoring social media is really important as well. And there's a lot of ways that you can monitor social media for free. You can track shares, you can track retweets. If it's Twitter, you can track likes. You can monitor hashtags and keywords associated with your brand as well. So keep that in mind. Google Alerts are a great way to monitor what's being said, not specifically on a social media platform, but just on Google itself. So consider a Google Alert as well. Also have a look at all social media and consider all social media platforms. But knowing your target audience will know exactly where they consume media, particularly social media. So if you know exactly who your target audience is, you'll know what social media channels they're on. So you don't want to be on all social media. You want to be exactly where your target market is. And then you want to produce content for all of those social media sites that are relevant to that target audience. So focus your efforts here. Make sure that they're extremely focused, and you can do that by knowing your target market well. So in order to be active on channels and encourage this engagement, you have to support social media in your business. Now, when I say support social media, there's 3 elements to engaging with your customers. Now, that first element is to listen. So listen online and listen offline. Online, you can use free tools for social media monitoring that track mentions, they track competitors, track specific events. You can become a social media monitoring specialist yourself through just spending time on social channels. There are some web monitoring tools as well, web analytics tools to have a look at what kind of visitors you're getting to your sites, and looking at analytics on social media in particular. There are also some brand and reputation tools. I would have a look at importing this data that you're collecting into your own reporting as well, so you can benchmark it. So you can go, all right, how well did we do this week in terms of how many reviews did you get? How many positive reviews were there? How many did you reply to? So you actively track what's going on and then compare your results month on month. Talking is the next element. Talk with pictures, talk with media releases, engage with customers, offline, in person, online, with your pictures, with your content, with your responses. Also look at engaging with influencers perhaps. There will be topic relevant blogs, video blogs or vlogs. There's communities, there's social networks that you could be talking on as a person, as a brand. So keep those in mind as well. You absolutely have to talk. And then the third element is to support people. So direct people to channels where they can then talk to you. So make sure your website has links to social media accounts. In your premises, if you've got a shop front type thing, make sure that you tell people where they can talk to you, so then you can listen. So it becomes a bit of a cycle. You have to support people to talk so that you can listen, and then you can talk back to them. Think about advertising your social media channels wherever you can. Communicate them verbally, even if you've got people in front of you. Encourage those customers to engage with you online. It gives you that platform, and it gives you that ability to be able to listen and talk back to them, keeping them in the cycle, and then hopefully keeping them more brand loyal. So going back to this customer journey, social media is an absolutely crucial part of the journey. It really strongly allows you to improve your customer service, to engage with your customers, and provide real-time responses to any questions that they might have that can help them get through that purchase position, and even obviously become advocates. Through listening and talking and supporting in the social media space, you really enhance that advocacy component of the customer journey even more so. And then that encourages brand awareness for people that they then pitch your business or recommend your business to. That then means you'll become visible when your customers begin their journey, these new customers. So keep in mind that a lot of businesses focus on their efforts on those first three stages. So that awareness, the consideration, and the purchase. And those three stages of the journey are absolutely crucial. I agree with that, but it can be a really huge missed opportunity, because the last two stages, loyalty and advocacy, will bring you your most high value customers. So in many cases, they'll actually send even more business your way. Once you've got someone in that sales funnel, you really want to retain them and make them an advocate, because then you don't have to spend advertising dollars to get them again. They will bring more people, and you've already got them. So hopefully that explains why this customer journey is so important and where social media fits into that. Okay, so that wraps up our session on customer service effects on social media. I hope it makes sense to you, and I hope there's some things that you can take out of today's webinar to improve, or at the very least better understand that connection between what happens face-to-face with your customers and what happens online. Now, I'm going to stay online and answer any questions that you might have, but keep in mind we've really just scratched the surface. So if you want to know more, or if you want to talk about any other aspect of your business, you can always book a one-on-one appointment with me through your ASBAS login, or a range of other advisors. So do keep that in mind. I hope that you will join me again for another webinar, or hopefully we can chat one-on-one. But like I said, I'll stay online now, and if you've got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thanks again.